Room 442 is presented by North Star Bets. That's a win.
Yeah, it was a busy Tuesday with a bunch of Premier League matches taking place. Nottingham Forest falling to Leeds and Leicester falling to Aston Villa in the first match without Brendan Rodgers. In the Coppa Italia, Juventus and Inter drew 1-1 with the second leg taking place next week. Lukaku saw red. But Chelsea and Liverpool gave us absolutely nothing, with Bayern Munich falling to Freiburg. James Sharman and Sarah Pereira join you now. It's room 442, guys. Welcome in. James, Liverpool, Chelsea, 0-0. I mean, dreadful. That's a blockbuster match in the Prem.
It was once upon a time, eh?
Yeah, just miserable football all around.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea probably should have won the game. 2 goals disallowed, and Klopp even kind of alluded to that post-match. Just two teams, it seems, running out the stretch. I know Liverpool can potentially still finish in European spots, and they might do so. Chelsea, I mean, obviously huge news breaking when you get to that shortly. I don't know what they're fighting for now, just respect, really. But yeah, only a year ago, this would have been seen as a marquee matchup, and in the end, it wasn't that exciting in the build-up, and through 90 minutes, a waste of time, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Klopp made some interesting decisions here with the lineup. No Salah, no Cody Gakpo, no Trent Alexander-Arnold. Some may argue that might have been a good thing, but...
Who? I wouldn't argue that, but I know what you're saying.
No, I'm just having a laugh here. But do you think he made these changes because he knows that they have to welcome league leaders Arsenal over the weekend?
Yeah, maybe. I know he said before the match, listen, we had to make some changes. Players are getting tired, and they've played so much football the last couple of years. We know that fatigue is an issue. But also, is it interesting when you mentioned how we needed some fresh ideas out there and some fresh energy. And I found that quite interesting. Salah's been okay this year, not great. He scored some big goals, but you can't hang this season on Mo Salah and the new contract. But aside from that, yeah, it just seems a team that's not trying new things. They're certainly aging right now. Jamie Carragher was all over Klopp post-match, which is unlike him, saying, listen, you've got to change things up. You can't expect to have the same results with this group of players. It's not working. Yeah. So it's going to be a massive rebuild this summer for this team, and particularly in midfield. A lot of money will be spent, and that's why they need to finish in the European spots to kind of, at least tell potential suitors, listen, we can give you European football at least. But yeah, it's just, it's only 2 weeks ago we're saying this team will probably finish top 4.
Yeah.
They're going to start picking up wins, and they haven't done that. They just begun to slump. Once again, although a point is a point, I suppose. But yeah, up against Arsenal this weekend, a huge match once again, not just for them, but for Arsenal. And that's terrifying because, as Klopp mentioned post-match too, Arsenal playing such great, exciting, beautiful football right now. It's going to be very difficult to get 3 points there, even at Anfield.
Well, I mean, the last time Liverpool played at Anfield was the Real Madrid match, where they lost 5-2. So, sour taste in the Liverpool fans' mouths right now, I think, as well. And I think Klopp doesn't want to be embarrassed is the word I keep hearing, because that the Manchester City match, last weekend, they lost 4-2, and Klopp basically came out and said, we're lucky we didn't lose by more.
Yeah, he said that, even with 10 men, they would have beaten us.
Yeah.
And, this time last year, again, they were neck and neck, have been for the few years now, really close. Now the gap looks bigger than it has been for a long time. Great managers know when it's time to change teams, and I think he is a great manager, but I think he did leave it a year too late. But how could he change that team from last year? How close they got to winning 4 trophies.
Yeah, the quadruple.
And finishing the quadruple, right? And finishing a point behind Man City. I mean, it'd be very difficult for Klopp to then go into the off-season and say, okay, you know what? Thanks for the season, boys.
For sure.
It was historic, but we're going to break you up now.
Yeah.
Right? So he was really in a tough spot. I'm sure there were times last year when he knew this was the time to move on for some players, but he knew that he couldn't do it. So all this talk about Klopp being sacked is just utter nonsense.
Okay, well, no, I wanted to ask you that because I'm hearing it now. I feel like I've asked you this a few times this year, but the more the season continues, the more I'm hearing it from Liverpool fans, diehard Scousers, and I'm kind of questioning it now too, because I'm like, well, maybe if they're thinking it, I'm just wondering if there's no question that he's a great manager, but like I've said before, is it just come to the point where he can't give any more to this team?
Right. It's a valid point. I mean, he's been there for, 7 years?
Yeah.
No one's been at a club longer in England right now. in the Premier League anyway.
It's crazy.
It's a long time in football terms, right? Now, I know back in the days of the Fergies and the Wengers, they'd be there for 20-odd years, but those days are gone, I think. Listen, he's got enough credit in the bank to try and rebuild this thing. He's rebuilt it once already. He can rebuild it again. I believe that. And with that comes new players, right? So maybe the message won't get old because you're bringing some reinforcements who aren't used to... If it's the same squad, I get that. It's time to maybe move on and freshen it. But I think you have to give him credit and time to redo this. He deserves that. But again, like you said, listen, if this continues into next season, he could see himself being fired. And sure, if midway through next season, despite spending lots of money, they're still struggling, okay, then you can start reevaluating. But at this point, to fire Jurgen Klopp would be a big mistake. I mean, he'll be snapped up by another club in a second.
Well, they sit 8th right now in the Prem. So if they finish outside of any European contention, or I guess is 8th the conference?
Yeah, does that count?
I don't know. At this point, you guys need what you can get.
I think 8th you're out. I think you're not qualifying for anything in 8th. And maybe that's what you need for a reset.
Yeah, right.
Don't worry about European football. Just focus on the league itself. Maybe you need that.
All right. Well, still 10 games left in the season, so
it's not over. I mean, it isn't as far
over.
as
it
just shows that this time last year they're fighting on all four fronts.
But they're not finishing top 4, right?
I don't think so. There's
so.
no evidence to suggest that they can turn it around. Plus, the teams in between them are not great, but there's a lot of teams to the leapfrog, right?
Yeah.
I don't see a United slumping that badly, do you? Finishing outside the top 4. Newcastle are playing brilliant football right now. We can always hope, Sarah.
Let's shift our focus to the other team there at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea. The news there about Chelsea, though, is Frank Lampard may be coming in as a caretaker to finish the season with the boys in blue. I am shocked. I was on the floor when this happened. Insane. There are so many managers, we spoke about this just yesterday, that are linked to Chelsea. And now all of a sudden Frank Lampard is in, and we've seen him as a coach, and it hasn't been great for him.
No.
So
it's a PR move, isn't it, Sarah? I mean, listen, if you're Todd Bowley, you're not looking good right now. You fired Potter, you brought all these players in, all this bravado, you say silly things in the media. You bring Frank Lampard in, who is still beloved by Chelsea fans, right? They really wanted him to work out as coach, but they still remember him as a player. And the rumours are he's bringing with him John Terry and Ashley Cole. I mean, why not Didier Drogba while you're at it, right? And Peter Cech.
Can you imagine Drogba?
I mean, listen, they're not going down, right? They're not finishing in the European spot, so he can't do too much damage.
Yeah.
So you bring him in, and from his standpoint, listen, it's a really good squad. Right, it's stacked with talent.
It is.
If he can get some good results between now and the end of the season, which is possible because that team apparently didn't buy into Potter because of the, he wasn't a big name.
Yeah.
They'll respect Frank Lampard for what he did as a player. They might play for him. If he can get some good results, that his stock rises. Even though it's a bit like going back to the ex-girlfriend. Even though she treated you really badly last time out, but you just get there's a kind of that feel to it as well, like where's your self-respect? But the Everton didn't work out right with Lampard, so maybe he can rebuild some of his identity as a coach. In the next 10 games.
In my mind, he hasn't been good at all at Chelsea, at Everton. He's sometimes players aren't meant to be coaches, and I'm wondering if that's something with him. Yeah. He's trying it out though, but I think you're right. I think Todd Bowley is thinking a superstar for Chelsea, one of the most respected players the team has ever seen. And not only the players will see that, but the fans as well. Chelsea fans right now are probably
they're beside themselves right now, right?
So they need someone that they can say, well, we're never going to go against this guy
But what if they win 6 or 7 games?
What if they win the Champions League?
What if they win that? 100%. Okay,
if they win the Champions League.
They're playing Real Madrid, so it's unlikely. Right, but what if they do? Di Matteo won it a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And then got fired shortly thereafter. But what if they do? Right, get to the final, and then do you still go after Nagelsmann and Poch or whoever it is in the summertime, or do you say, you know what, Frank, we'll give you a second chance?
I think it depends on how these next 10 games go in the Prem. I think that the Prem is finished for them, and also qualifying for Europe next year. I think that's all out the window.
Unless they win it and then qualify that way.
Yeah, that's true. But if they go to the final of the Champions League, whether they win or lose, and the games they play in the Prem aren't awful, whether as long as they're playing decent football and getting some points, then maybe. But I do think that it has to be something really extraordinary for Frank Lampard to stay. I think
Yeah.
it's just they're just trying to finish the season on somewhat of a high note, and they're at least if they don't win anything, they'll be like, "But we brought you Lampard."
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a case of just, patting, soothing and rubbing the back of the fans, saying, "Listen, it's going to be okay. We're going to sort this out in the summer, but in the meantime, we'll take care of you." It's a bit like when Liverpool were bought from the Hicks and Gillette nonsense when Henry first took over. They hired Kenny Dalglish back, who was beloved at that club. It's a short-term kind of fix, and it turned out okay. They then got Klopp, right, eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's a weird one. I was shocked too when I first saw it, but it does kind of make sense on both sides the more you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Chelsea drama continues always.
Thank you, Chelsea.
But let's talk about Bayern Munich and Thomas Tuchel. Bayern losing to Freiburg in the DFB-Pokal, the German Cup. They are out. They're done. It's over. Now, this was the match in between Der Klassiker and then the Man City Champions League first leg. I'll give it to Bayern in the sense that it was a last-minute penalty.
95th minute,
yeah,
right?
it was unlucky, but you still got knocked out. Freiburg's 4th in the Bundesliga. They're not a bad side.
They're
No
good team.
disrespect to them. But this man right here is in the hot seat, and we know that. And I'm kind of curious to see now what that means going into the match against Manchester City.
I'll tell you what, Nagelsmann is at home laughing, right?
I'm laughing.
Because I thought Tuchel was, the solution, the greatest manager ever, don a manager's cap on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Right? That's what everyone was saying after the Klassiker. And before that, how could Chelsea... Listen, he's a very good manager, but he's not perfect.
Yeah.
And Bayern's not perfect either, right? They've proven that this year. So, I don't know. Listen, it's the cup. They don't really care about it so much. They care about the Champions League. They care about the Bundesliga.
I think it's just a matter of when that Tuchel came in.
Yeah,
now
it's
all
timing, right? It's
happening.
about momentum. And now, like you
Yeah.
said, they've got a game this weekend in the Bundesliga, but then they got the City game. Really
No, they
interesting.
don't have a game in the Bundesliga.
Oh, they
That's
don't?
what I was checking. Yeah, they have... Oh, no, they do. I'm so sorry. They do. They play against Freiburg in the...
Oh, do they really? In the Bundesliga?
No,
There you go.
we got a
Revenge.
game. Yeah, no, they play against Freiburg again in the Bundes. Oh, that is incredible. Yeah, good.
It's
Good.
poetry. That's just, the game always does this, right?
Yeah,
These
it
storylines.
does.
It's fantastic.
No,
But
it's great.
he's going to be just fine. He's going to be successful. We know that.
I mean, not if they lose to Manchester City.
What if, could have, should have, yeah. We can speculate, and we've got a lot to talk about next week, of course, in the Champions
Yeah.
League. But maybe they will. Listen, it's quite possible. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, what a matchup that is in the quarterfinal. It's almost too good for a quarterfinal, isn't it?
I know, I love it, though. I'm very happy. Yeah, that's right, guys. Champions League is back next week. We will be talking about that for sure. And we'll be watching Bayern and Freiburg again this weekend.
Because they're playing.
Room 442 is presented by North Star Bets. That's a win.